Hi everyone. So if you follow me on Instagram, you know that the past few days I've been posting about an interaction I had at a Sephora that I was really unpleased with. Just a little bit of background, I worked at Sephora for a few months around the holidays, just as hired help. Wonderful experience. I couldn't talk more highly about how amazing it was to be able to work for Sephora, and the team of people I got to work with was great. So this past Saturday, I went to the city, so New York City, and I spent the day in, Times Square. It was my mother's Mother's Day gift. A little late, but she loved it anyway. We went to see a Broadway play, and then we got to walk around, and it started to rain, and luckily for me, well, I guess hindsight not so lucky, but we were right next to a Sephora when it started to rain, so we popped in there and it was air conditioned, so that was wonderful, because a lot of the stores, the air conditioning was broken, and that was a huge disappointment, because if you have never been to the city, I do not suggest going in June when it's like 100 degrees. It was just so not pleasant. So we popped into Sephora and I took a look in the mirror and I was like, oh my god, my makeup looks terrible. It was all broken up. I used a foundation that I shouldn't have, that I knew broke up on my skin, but I liked the way it looked. So I was like, no, I'll be okay, I'll be fine. I'll just blot it with some oil pads, I'll be all good. Didn't work. Looked like crap all day. 20 minutes into walking around the city and my face was a big oil slick, so we stopped, we had some time to kill. So I remembered that I had a free makeover card in my wallet that you get when you become VIB. So I think VIB is like $150 a year. You have to spend $150 in a calendar year to qualify for VIB, which I did no problem. I did that, within like a month working there, because every time you see something you're like, I want that, and discount, I got that. So, wasn't an issue. Definitely spent more than enough to qualify for VIB. So I had the free makeover card and I was like, oh, maybe I can use this. So we went over, we asked. The girl said that generally they like to take appointments because it is Times Square and they're so busy, but if they can fit me in, one girl was already late to her appointment, so they were giving her a couple extra minutes, and then if she didn't show up, I got the appointment. And I did, which was cool because they have a whole load of products there that we don't have, because I live in a relatively smaller town, and we don't get like the big fancy names like Guerlain or Dior or Tom Ford. They had Tom Ford too. So I got to, play around with all those, which was really cool, and then they did my makeup. So a girl came over to me, the one who ended up doing my makeup, and she goes, what type of skin do you have? And I tell her oily, and then she shows me over to where she wants me to sit and goes to find products. All of the skincare products that she used on my face left a greasy residue. They were not good for oily skin at all. It made my skin feel worse than it did before she put them on, or before we even took any of my makeup off, and before she put any of those products on. I felt disgusting. But I was like, okay, maybe I'll feel better after she washes them off and stuff. So then, one of the only products she used that I actually enjoyed was the Lancome color correcting spongy things. Yeah, cushions. Color correcting cushions in green to combat any redness I had on my face, because that was like the only thing she used that actually worked. I'm gonna hang on. Let's move the camera, I'm gonna move the camera right here, and I'm gonna place a picture of what my makeup ended up looking like so we can go through it step by step and I can tell you. The first thing we're going to talk about is the foundation. So her original choice was the Estee Lauder Double Wear. I worked for Macy's for a while and we had an Estee Lauder counter. I actually worked in Clinique across from the Estee Lauder counter, but working there I had the opportunity to play around with the colors, and I knew right off the bat that none of those colors were going to work out for my skin tone. They're all too yellow and I needed something more on the neutral side with a tiny bit more of a red tone to it. So she tried them on my face. She's like, no, these aren't gonna work, which I knew was gonna happen, but I didn't want to, be rude right off the bat and be like, no, don't use those, they're not gonna work. So then I asked if we could use the Dior Airshow foundation because, I don't know, I've always wanted to play with it, you know, don't have access to it at home, and certainly not going to buy it after what happened with the Giorgio Armani foundation. So she brought one over, way too dark, but she also brought over the Sephora Airbrush foundation as well. That was actually a perfect color match, and it was wonderful. The issue was the way that she applied it. I understand for like hygienic purposes, they're not gonna like spray it right on my face because that would be ridiculous. Foundation would be everywhere, clothes would be ruined, hair would be ruined, whatever. That's fine. Wasn't angry about that. She sprayed it on her brush and she like worked it in like really small sections on my face and completely missed huge patches of my skin. Now I'm sitting far enough away from the mirror that I can't really tell she's missing patches in my skin until I get closer. So I end up looking in the mirror when we're done, and my nose, like right down the center, is just missing like a huge chunk of foundation. There's nothing there, and everywhere else it's like streaky and horrible looking. So I was really, really disappointed with that. And then before she applied concealer of any type, she powdered my whole face, which was weird because, I mean, generally speaking, you go from liquid to cream to powder. That's just normally how it works, you know, so nothing cakes up. But then we're gonna move on to concealer. We also had an issue finding the right concealer. She was adamant about that Estee Lauder Double Wear, and you know, we didn't have any luck with the foundation, but she tried out the concealer and neither of those worked either. Those were both the wrong shade, which were applied over powder, so they looked like crap, and then she had to wipe those away. So we settled on the Makeup Forever, those like the newer ones that came out. They're really, really nice concealers. I have no issue with them. I do have an issue with them applied over powder. They looked not good. It looked like crap, and the color corrector she put underneath my eyes was really sparse and didn't actually do a good job correcting it all. Generally when I do a color corrector, I put the color corrector on, blend that out, put a skin tone concealer over it to cover the color corrector, and then a highlighting concealer underneath my eyes, because I need something to cancel out that orange salmon color, which she definitely didn't do. So my eye, underneath my eyes were a really weird color, and I wasn't really, you know, at all pleased with that either. So then she powdered that, and we moved on to eyes. I asked for something like fun, dramatic, something I probably couldn't do on myself or like as an everyday. I got this. I got raspberry eyeshadow from a Ciate London palette that I wouldn't do on myself, but I could if I wanted to. I guess, like, I don't know, I wasn't pleased with it at all. You know, when someone asks for dramatic, raspberry eyeshadow isn't usually where you go with that. Just saying. The bronzer she ended up using, just, my skin wasn't powdered enough. Which, and I know I've been complaining about her powdering my skin, but it wasn't powdered enough that other products weren't sticking, because my face still felt really sticky after she had powdered it. So then she applied the bronzer first, and it was like really patchy, especially on my forehead, because she just like really lightly dusted it over my forehead, and it looked muddy on my skin tone. I don't remember the exact bronzer she used. I'm not sure which one that she picked, but it didn't look good. It wasn't one that I pick to use ever. So I was really disappointed with the way that looked. The blush she used was from the Narcissist Palette, and it didn't show up on my skin at all. Like, I'm pale, so it's really hard for a blush to not show up at all, but either she didn't put enough on, or it's just one of those colors that just blended into my skin, because it just wouldn't show up. It didn't do anything. So I looked pretty gross. Like, my face just looked gross because I looked muddy, but I also looked dead. So that's kind of hard to do. So that sucked. So then we're doing the eyes, and she's like, oh, good, we're gonna do a wing liner. And I was like, okay, cool, because you know, wings are fun. They're kind of hard though. So she's having me look like up and down and straight forward so she can get these wings right. And after she does the wings, she walks away for a minute, and I look in the mirror, and they're like little short stubby things that pointed down on my eyes. Generally not how you would apply a wing to anyone at all. You don't want the wing to point downward. It closes off the eye and also just looks weird. But so that happened. And at that point I was just like, I'm not having her take it off. There's no point now. This is a pain in the butt. So she brings over a nude stick to do my eyebrows. I like to do my eyebrows darker than this hair because this, well, A, it's not my natural color anyway, but generally I match it to my roots at any given point in time, which right now is kind of like a darker red, kind of taupe-ish color because my hair is growing out. But, you know, that's generally, she brings it over in blonde, which is never a color I would pick because my actual eyebrow hairs are darker than blonde, and it just didn't look good. So she's doing them. They're completely uneven, and I have one patch of hair where it just like, it won't stick, and I understand that. And she's like really going hard in there, and she's like, I don't know why, it just won't stick. And I'm like, well, I use the dip brow pomade, so it looks like I have a little something. And every time I made some type of suggestion, she kind of got a little angrier at me, which was really unfair. Like, I understand that probably most of the clientele that they get are people who don't really know what they're doing, haven't tried out a whole lot of different brands to see what works best for them, but I have, especially because I worked there, so I know what works for me. And every time I said something, she kind of got a little mad, like she didn't want me to know what I was talking about or know what I was doing so I could tell her. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So she was like, oh. So she went over and grabbed the dip brow and she applied it, and she's like, yeah, just stick to that. That'll work, I guess. And then we had a girl who was walking around, was a brand ambassador for Too Faced Cosmetics, and she was wearing this gorgeous liquid lipstick. I don't remember the shade. It was a very deep, like reddish berry color. So I had asked her what she was wearing, and she grabbed it and brought it over and set it down in front of me to show me what it was. And the color was gorgeous on this girl who had a very yellow toned skin, and I don't, and I wasn't really looking for something that was going to show up that wine color, because I have a lot of colors like that show up that color. I'm not thrilled with it. It gets the job done sometimes, but that's not my favorite. So she was like, oh, so you want to use this one? And I was like, not really. I just asked the girl what it was and she brought it over. This isn't really what I wanted. It's a beautiful color, but I'm not really looking for it. I'm not looking for it. And she was like, okay, so do you have anything in mind? And I said, Whisk. It's one of the new Bite Beauty shades. They came out with like 4 random colors, like weird colors that are like gorgeous colors. I didn't feel like walking around with squid ink, kale. There's a purple one that's really dark, I don't remember what it's called, or Whisk, or, you know, one of those 3 on my face, because I didn't want to wear dark blue, or green, or purple, or super dark purple. So I was like, can I try whiskey? So she goes over, she's gone for like 4 minutes, and then she comes back and she's like, Bite Beauty just reformulated their entire line, and I think they got rid of it. I'm sorry. And I'm just sitting there like, no, they didn't. It just came out like a month ago, maybe, if that. Like, I follow them on Instagram. I know it just came out. She's like, well, do you want to go look? And I'm like, yes, please. So I get up. I walk right over. I find it within 2 seconds. And then she acts like I gave her the wrong name. But if someone asked for something that was a type of liquor, like, even if I had said cognac and it was whiskey, wouldn't you bring that over just in case? Like, because, you know, there's a bunch of different names for alcohol. Like, maybe someone just messed it up. But I was, like, she honestly made me sound and feel like I was an idiot and that I gave her the wrong product name, even though I knew I didn't. So she applied it, and I know my lips are uneven. That's just how it goes. That's a lot of people's are. So she applies it, and it's A, it's all over my teeth, and B, it's like all the way up here and then like way far down, and it just looks absolutely terrible. And at that point, I'm just pissed, and I'm done, and I don't want to be there anymore. So I'm just like, okay, that's fine. And she's like, okay, you're all done. So she skipped out on highlighter, and she never applied mascara. Like, she at one point had literally said, oh, I don't have a mascara over here. And I guess that was it. Like, she just gave up on mascara. And I know I probably should have said something, but I was at that point where I was so aggravated. I was just like, I actually walked in here with my makeup looking nicer. Even though it was all broken up on my chin, my upper lip, and my nose, and in between my eyebrows, it still looked better than when I left. And I was just like flabbergasted. I guess that's the only word I can use. I was so angry with the way I looked when I left, and I was so mad that I wasted a free makeover on something that looked so terrible. I know people who work at the 2 Sephoras by where I live that would have done phenomenal jobs on my makeup. So I was really disappointed that I ended up using it for just no reason, I guess, just because I wanted to use it. But I got someone who really didn't know what they were doing. And I know Sephora trains you and teaches you how to apply makeup to other people. So the fact that it ended up being this bad was just a huge, huge disappointment, and I won't be going back to that Sephora anytime soon. I was highly, highly disappointed with it. So I guess that's everything. That was my super disappointing Sephora experience, which I'm not sure how many other people have had the same experience that I've had. I'm sure there have been a few. It happens, but I was really disappointed with the way that this girl treated me and my business. Not my business, but like the way that this girl treated me and like me as a customer, because they don't know it's a free makeover, but it doesn't mean that the person's not gonna buy anything. Like, I had asked her to write all the products down, which she also didn't do, because I thought, you know, maybe there'd be something good in there that she ended up using, but I didn't really like any of it. So I was highly disappointed just through the whole experience, and I really hope that no one else has had to deal with something like that. So that's my video for this week. Sorry that this was kind of such a downer, but I really had to like get this off my chest. I wanted to know if anyone else has had a disappointing experience like this, because I was just super, super unhappy. So let me know in the comments below. If you've ever had to deal with anything like this at one of your Sephoras. And I will see you guys on Friday for another Disney Villains tutorial. Bye!